Li Jun stepped onto the luxury Starship Roller with the confidence of a man who owned half the mining operations on Mars. His handcrafted suit from the finest tailors on Earth Colony Prime gleamed under the ship's soft lighting. The first class cabin was exactly what he expected. Leather seats that cost more than most people's yearly salary, crystal glasses, and the kind of silence that only money could buy. He settled into seat 2A, the best spot in the house, and immediately pulled out his Platinum Class passenger card. June loved that card. It meant he was somebody important, somebody who mattered in this vast galaxy where humans were still fighting to prove themselves among the alien species. The Starship Roar was humanity's pride, a massive vessel that could carry 1,000 passengers across 3 star systems in comfort. Its engines hummed with the power of controlled fusion, and its hull sparkled with defensive shields that could stop a meteor shower. This was the kind of ship that showed other species that humans had made it big in the galaxy. June was admiring the view of Earth's blue marble through his window when he heard footsteps. He turned and felt his good mood evaporate instantly. A black woman was walking down the aisle toward the first-class section, carrying a simple travel bag and wearing plain civilian clothes. She looked tired, like she had been traveling for days. His face twisted with the kind of disgust usually reserved for the alien traders who tried to cheat him in business deals. This was his space, his first-class sanctuary, and now it was being invaded by someone who clearly didn't belong. The woman found her seat. To see, right across the aisle from him, she sat down quietly, pulled out a tablet, and began reading what looked like military reports. June noticed she moved with a certain precision, the way soldiers did, but that only made him angrier. Military people got discounts on these flights, which meant she probably paid half what he did. "Excuse me," he called out, his voice carrying across the cabin. The flight attendant, Kim Hannah, hurried over with a nervous smile. She was young, probably new to this job, and clearly wanted to keep everyone happy. "Yes, Mr. Lee. How can I help you today?" June pointed across the aisle with his manicured finger. "I paid premium prices for first class, full price, no discounts, no special deals. Why is she here?" He didn't bother lowering his voice, and several other passengers turned to look. Kim Hannah glanced at the woman, who was still reading her tablet calmly. "Sir, all passengers in first class have valid tickets. Everyone here belongs here." "I don't think so," June said, his voice getting louder. "I've been flying first class for 20 years. I know who belongs here and who doesn't. Look at her clothes. Look at how she's dressed. This is first class, not a military transport." Other passengers were definitely watching now. An elderly couple from the Jupiter colonies whispered to each other. A businessman from the asteroid belt mining stations put down his drink to listen. Even the robot service attendant paused its cleaning routine. General Patricia Hayes looked up from her tablet for the first time. Her eyes met June's briefly, and he saw something there. Not anger, not fear, but a kind of tired patience. Like she had seen this exact scene play out 100 times before across 100 different star systems. "Sir," Kim Hannah said, her voice shaking slightly, "I really can't ask passengers to move unless there's been some mistake with the booking system." "Then check the booking system," June demanded, slapping his hand on his armrest. "Check it right now. I guarantee you'll find a mistake. People like her don't fly first class on ships like this." Hayes closed her tablet slowly and began gathering her few belongings. She moved with the same quiet precision she had shown when boarding, but now June could see other passengers staring at her with a mixture of curiosity and embarrassment. "It's fine," Hayes said softly. her voice carrying just enough to be heard over the ship's engine hum. "I don't want to cause any trouble. See," June said triumphantly to Kim Hannah. "She knows she doesn't belong here. Just move her to economy, where she'll be more comfortable with her own kind." Kim Hannah looked like she wanted to disappear into the ship's metal walls. The company policy was clear: keep the premium passengers happy, especially the ones who flew regularly and spent the most money. She knew Mr. Lee's file showed he took this route twice a month for his business. Hayes stood up, slinging her bag over her shoulder. As she walked toward the economy section, June leaned back in his seat with a satisfied smirk. The first-class cabin was his again, the way it should be. He adjusted his expensive watch and ordered champagne from the Martian vineyards round him. The other passengers slowly returned to their own business, but several still glanced toward the economy section where Hayes had disappeared. The ship continued its journey through the star-filled void, carrying its passengers toward their destination, unaware that everything was about to change in ways none of them could imagine. June was halfway through his second glass of Martian champagne when the Aurora suddenly shook like a toy in the hands of an angry child. The crystal glass flew from his hand, shattering against the cabin wall as red emergency lights began flashing throughout the ship. The gentle hum of the engines changed to an angry roar. And somewhere deep in the ship's belly, alarms started. Screaming. Captain Park Min-ho's voice crackled through the intercom system, fighting against static and interference. "All passengers, this is your captain speaking. Remain in your seats and fasten your safety harnesses immediately. We are under attack by unknown hostile forces. I repeat, we are under attack." The words hit the first-class cabin like a physical blow. Passengers who had been relaxing moments before now scrambled for their safety belts, their faces pale with sudden fear. The elderly couple from Jupiter grabbed each other's hands, their knuckles white with terror. The businessman from the asteroid belt dropped his electronic tablet, which clattered across the floor as the ship shook again. June pressed his face against the reinforced window, his expansive suit forgotten as he stared into the black void of space. What he saw made his blood turn to ice water in his veins. Sleek, predatory shapes were moving round the Aurora like sharks circling wounded prey. The alien ships were unlike anything in human design. They seemed to flow through space, rather than fly, their hulls shifting and changing color like living skin. "Nexus Raiders," whispered the businessman from the asteroid belt, his voice barely audible over the ship's groaning hull. "Those are Nexus fighters." Everyone in the galaxy knew about the Nexus Raiders. They were the nightmare that haunted every space traveler's dreams. These alien pirates didn't just steal cargo or demand money. They took prisoners, harvested information about human colonies, and left behind only empty ships drifting in the darkness. Stories spread through the space stations about entire passenger liners found weeks later with no one aboard, just bloodstains on the walls and signs of a struggle. The Aurora's defensive systems came online with a series of bright flashes, energy shields shimmered around the ship like soap bubbles, and automated laser turrets emerged from hidden panels along the hull. For a moment, June felt hope rising in his chest. This was a modern human starship with the latest military-grade protection systems. That hope died quickly. The Nexus fighters moved with impossible speed and grace, weaving between the Aurora's laser beams like dancers avoiding raindrops. Their own weapons fired in return. Not the bright energy beams that humans use, but something that looked like living darkness. Tendrils of shadow that wrapped round the ship's shields and began eating through them like acid. One by one, the Aurora's defense turrets sparked and went dark. The energy shields flickered and failed, leaving the massive passenger ship naked and vulnerable in the void. Through the window, June could see scorch marks spreading across the hull where the alien weapons had struck. There, "Boarding us!" screamed passenger Choisumi from her window seat near the back of first class. She was pointing at something outside, her finger shaking with terror. "Look, they're cutting through the hole." June turned to see what she was pointing at and felt his heart stop. 3 of the alien fighters had attached themselves to the Aurora's hull like parasites, their ships somehow melting and flowing into the metal of the passenger vessel. Bright sparks flew as they cut through the reinforced steel that was supposed to protect everyone inside. The ship's robot service attendant, a sleek chrome unit that had been serving drinks minutes before, suddenly stopped in the middle of the aisle. Its optical sensors flashed red as it received new programming. "Emergency protocol activated," it announced in its mechanical voice. "All passengers proceed to designated safe zones. Hostile boarding detected, sealing blast doors in 60 seconds. But there was nowhere to run. The Aurora was a passenger ship, not a military vessel. It had comfortable cabins and luxury dining rooms, not bunkers or weapons lockers. The safe zones were just reinforced sections of the ship that might buy them a few extra minutes before the raiders broke through. Heavy footsteps began echoing through the corridors outside first class, footsteps that were too heavy and too widely spaced to belong to any human crew member. The sound was getting closer, accompanied by a strange clicking noise that made everyone's skin crawl. Some passengers started crying quietly, while others sat frozen in their seats like deer caught in headlights. Kim Hanna, the young flight attendant, tried to maintain her professional composure even as her hands shook. "Please remain calm," she said, though her own voice was breaking. "The captain and crew are handling the situation." June's face had gone completely pale. All the color drained from his cheeks like water from a broken dam. The reality of their situation was crashing down on him like a falling asteroid. These weren't business rivals he could buy off or government officials he could bribe. These were Nexus raiders, alien predators who saw humans as nothing more than sources of information and entertainment. The footsteps were getting closer now, and with them came a smell that made everyone gag. Something like rotting metal and burned ozone. The raiders had breached the ship's hull and were making their way through the corridors, hunting for the passengers they knew were trapped inside like fish in a barrel. The screaming and crying in the economy section suddenly stopped, as if someone had pressed a mute button on the entire ship. In the middle of all the chaos, with alien footsteps getting closer and passengers hiding under their seats, one person stood up calmly. It was the woman June had forced to move from first class. Haze rose from her economy seat like a mountain emerging from fog. Everything about her changed in that single moment. Her shoulders straightened, her chin lifted, and her eyes took on a steel-hard focus that could cut through armor plating. The tired civilian who had quietly accepted humiliation was gone, replaced by something else entirely. "Listen to me very carefully," she said, her voice carrying across the cabin like a blade cutting through silk. Every word was precise, every syllable designed to command attention. "My name is General Patricia Hayes, commander of the 9th Human Defense Fleet." The effect was immediate and electric. Passengers who had been sobbing moments before looked up with sudden hope. Even the ship's robot attendants seemed to pause in their emergency protocols, their sensors focusing on this new source of authority. From the front of the ship, Officer Yuntai came running down the aisle, his security uniform disheveled and his face streaked with sweat. He had been trying to coordinate the ship's pathetic defenses when he heard that voice, a voice he had heard on military broadcasts across the galaxy. "General Hayes," he shouted, his eyes wide with disbelief and relief. "Is it really you? We need your help. The raiders are cutting through the hull in 3 different sections." Hayes nodded once, her expression calm as stone. "I know exactly where they are, Officer Yoon. I've been tracking this particular Nexus Raider group for 8 months across 4-star systems. She reached into a simple travel bag and pulled out what looked like a standard civilian communicator. But when she pressed a hidden sequence of buttons, the device transformed, unfolding into a military-grade tactical command unit that sparkled with advanced technology. Sierra Team. This is Alpha Command. She spoke into the device. Execute. Operation Mousetrap. I repeat, execute Operation Mousetrap. Across the ship, seemingly ordinary passengers began to move. The elderly man from Jupiter who had been holding his wife's hand suddenly stood up and reached under his seat, pulling out a compact energy rifle that had been hidden in a false bottom. The nervous businessman from the asteroid belt shed his scared expression and began assembling what looked like a portable shield generator from pieces hidden in his briefcase. My tactical team has been scattered throughout this ship in civilian clothes for the past 3 days, Hayes continued, her voice now reaching every corner of the Aurora through the ship's communication system. We've been hunting this specific Nexus Raider cell for months. They've been attacking passenger ships along this route, taking prisoners and selling human intelligence to the highest bidder in the first-class section. June's jaw dropped so far it nearly hit the floor. The woman he had insulted, the woman he had forced to move to economy class, was General Patricia Hayes, the same General Hayes whose victories against alien forces were taught in military academies across human space. Her face was on recruitment posters in every spaceport. Children across the colonies played with action figures made in her image. Today, Hayes continued, her voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. They didn't attack a helpless passenger ship. They walked straight into our trap. The ship's captain, Park Minho, came stumbling down from the bridge, his uniform torn and his face bloody from where sparks had hit him during the attack. General, the bridge is yours. We've lost main power to the defensive systems, Hayes was already moving, her civilian clothes seeming to transform her into a military commander before everyone's eyes. Captain, take your crew and secure the passenger areas. My team will handle the raiders. She turned to face the passengers, her presence filling the cabin like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. Ladies and gentlemen, you are about to witness why humanity has earned its place among the stars. These Nexus Raiders think they're hunting helpless prey. They're about to learn what happens when you corner a predator through the ship's hull. The sound of alien cutting tools grew louder. But now, instead of the sound of approaching doom, it seemed like the Nexus Raiders were cutting their way into their own graves. Bravo team, report. Hayes spoke into her communicator, in position. General, charges set on hull breach points 2 and 3. Charlie team, ready and waiting. Ma'am, we've got eyes on the primary breach point. Hayes smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. It was the smile of someone who had spent years learning exactly how to hurt the things that hurt humans. From his first-class seat, June watched in complete shock as the woman he had treated like garbage revealed herself to be one of the most powerful people in human space. His expensive suit suddenly felt like a costume, his platinum passenger card like a toy. He had insulted a living legend, a woman whose strategies had saved entire star systems from alien conquest. The heavy footsteps of the Nexus Raiders were almost at the passenger compartments now, but he stood calm and ready, surrounded by her team of disguised soldiers. The hunters were about to become the hunted. Hayes pressed the final sequence on her communicator, and the Aurora transformed from a helpless passenger ship into a deadly trap in the span of heartbeats. Alpha Team, execute Operation Mousetrap. All units, weapons free. The response was immediate and devastating. Throughout the ship, Passengers who had been cowering in terror suddenly moved with military precision. The scared woman in seat 15B reached under her cushion and pulled out a plasma rifle that hummed with lethal energy. The quiet man reading a book near the emergency exit stood up and began assembling a portable energy cannon from parts hidden in his luggage. Even more shocking was the elderly couple from Jupiter. The sweet grandmother who had been knitting moments before ripped open her yarn bag to reveal advanced targeting equipment, while her husband's walking cane transformed into a high-powered laser weapon with a sound like breaking glass. Nexus raiders always follow the same pattern, Hayes explained calmly as she moved through the ship, her team forming round her like a pack of wolves. They breach in 3 points: bow, stern, and midship. They expect panic, confusion, and helpless victims. Today, they get none of those things. The first Nexus raider to break through the whole breach was the Nightmare Madriel, standing nearly 8 feet tall. Its body was covered in chitinous armor that shifted colors like oil on water. Multiple arms ending in razor-sharp claws extended from its torso, and its head was a collection of glowing red eyes that seemed to see everything at once. These creatures had evolved on a world where only the most vicious predators survived. Dotted stepped through the smoking hole in the hull, expecting to find terrified humans running in circles. Instead, it found Sergeant Kim Day waiting with a smile and a rocket launcher. "Welcome aboard," Day said cheerfully, and pulled the trigger. The explosion lit up the corridor like a miniature sun. The Nexus Raider's armored body was tough enough to survive the vacuum of space, but human military explosives were designed specifically to punch through alien armor. The creature's dying scream echoed through the ship's corridors. "Contact bow section." Hayes spoke into her communicator as she moved toward the main breach point. "Tango down, stern section reporting," came another voice. 3 tangos eliminated. No casualties. Hayes had studied Nexus Raider psychology for years. She knew they were pack hunters who relied on fear and confusion to overwhelm their prey. Take away the fear, add some confusion of their own, and the predators became prey very quickly. The main breach point was where the raider leader would enter, a massive creature that served as both commander and the most dangerous fighter in the back. Hayes positioned herself at the end of the corridor with a clear line of sight, while her team took positions in hidden alcoves and behind reinforced barriers. When the raider leader emerged from the breach, it was even more terrifying than the others. This one was ancient, its armor scarred from countless battles across the galaxy. It carried weapons that looked like they were grown rather than manufactured, and its multiple eyes scanned the corridor with predatory intelligence. It saw Hayes standing alone at the far end of the hallway and let out a sound that was part roar, part laugh. In its experience, humans always ran when faced with a Nexus warrior. This one was either frozen with fear or incredibly stupid. The creature charged down the corridor, its claws sparking against the metal walls as it built up speed. Hayes stood perfectly still, her hand resting calmly on her sidearm. She waited until the creature was exactly where she wanted it. "Now," she said quietly. The corridor exploded into light and sound as her hidden team opened fire from every angle. Energy beams, plasma bolts, and kinetic rounds converged on the charging raider from positions it couldn't even see. The creature's armor, designed to deflect attacks from the front, was useless against a coordinated crossfire. But Hayes wasn't done as the raider staggered. She drew her weapon and put 3 precise shots into gaps in its armor that only someone with years of combat experience would know to target. The creature collapsed, its multiple eyes dimming as it died. "All sections report," Hayes commanded. "Bow clear, stern clear, midship clear." The entire battle had lasted less than 5 minutes. The Nexus Raiders, who had terrorized the shipping, Lane, for months, were eliminated without a single human casualty. From his first-class seat, June watched through the ship's internal monitors as Hayes coordinated the cleanup operation. He saw her checking on every passenger personally, making sure no one was injured or traumatized. He watched her organize medical teams to treat minor injuries and comfort teams to help people process what they had experienced. This was the woman he had insulted, the woman he had forced to move to economy class because he thought she didn't belong in first class, General Patricia Hayes, who had just saved his life and the lives of everyone on the ship with a brilliance and courage he could never hope to match. His expensive suit felt like rags now. His platinum passenger card seemed worthless. All his money, all his business success, all his pride, none of it mattered when faced with real heroism. Hayes had turned a potential massacre into a victory, and she had done it while protecting every single person aboard, including the man who had treated her with such disrespect. The smoke had barely cleared from the battle when the first new ships began arriving. The Aurora had sent out an automatic distress beacon during the attack, and now the entire galaxy was watching as rescue vessels surrounded the passenger liner. Military ships from the human defense fleet appeared like silver arrows against the stars, their hulls gleaming with weapons that could crack planets in half. Captain Park Minho stood on the bridge, still trying to process what had just happened. On his ship, in 30 years of flying passenger routes, he had never seen anything like it. His supposedly helpless civilian passengers had just destroyed an entire Nexus Raider pack with military precision that would make professional soldiers weep with envy. Captain, his communications officer called out, "We're getting messages from every major news network in human space. They all want to interview General Hayes down in the passenger compartments." Hayes was still moving through the ship, checking on every single person aboard. She knelt beside elderly passengers, spoke softly to frightened children, and personally made sure that everyone understood they were safe. Her uniform was torn and stained with battle smoke, but her presence filled every room she entered with calm authority. The truth was starting to emerge through official military channels, and it was bigger than anyone had imagined. Hayes hadn't just been taking a simple passenger flight. She had been returning from Operation Deep Strike, a covert mission that had taken her behind enemy lines to destroy a Nexus staging area that was preparing to invade 3 major human colonies. The mission had been so classified that even the ship's captain hadn't known who she really was. General Hayes single-handedly prevented what could have been the largest alien invasion in human history, announced Admiral Kim Woo from his flagship. The intelligence she gathered and the enemy facilities she destroyed saved over 50 million civilian lives. But while Hayes was being hailed as a hero across the galaxy, another story was spreading just as fast through social media and news networks. Several passengers had recorded June's racist outburst on their personal devices, and the footage was now viral across every human colony and space station. The video showed everything: June's disgusted expression when he saw Hayes, his demand that she be moved to economy class, his loud declaration that people like her didn't belong in first class. The contrast between his behavior and Hayes's quiet dignity was stark and damning. Within hours, the footage had been viewed billions of times. Comments poured in from across human space, from Mars mining colonies to the Outer Rim research stations. The anger was universal and swift. How dare this man treat the greatest hero with such disrespect? June's business empire began crumbling almost immediately. His mining contracts on Mars were cancelled by embarrassed partners. His shipping deals with the Jupiter colonies fell through as companies distanced themselves from his toxic reputation. His board of directors called an emergency meeting and voted him out of his own company. The first news crew to board the Aurora was led by reporter Son Hai, whose family had been saved during Hayes's defense of the Centauri system. She went straight to Hayes, who was helping a young mother calm her crying baby. "General Hayes," Songhai called out, her camera crew following behind her. "The entire galaxy wants to know what happened here today." Hayes looked up from the baby she was gently rocking and gave a tired smile. She had been fighting aliens across the galaxy for 15 years. But she still found time to comfort a frightened child. "What happened here today is what happens whenever good people stand together against those who would hurt the innocent," Hayes said, her voice carrying clearly through the ship's corridors. "Today reminds us that heroism comes in all colors, from all backgrounds, from all walks of life. We should judge people by their actions and their character, not by their appearance or where they came from." The reporter pressed closer with her microphone. "General, we understand you were subjected to racist treatment at the beginning of this flight. How do you feel about that now?" Hayes was quiet for a moment, considering her words carefully. "I've faced discrimination my entire career. It comes with the territory when you're breaking barriers and fighting for what's right. But I've learned that the best response to hatred is not more hatred, but excellence. Let your actions speak louder than their prejudice." From across the cabin, June had been watching the interview. His face was streaked with tears of shame and regret. Everything he had worked for his entire life was falling apart. But that wasn't what hurt the most. What hurt was knowing that he had treated a genuine hero. Someone who had risked her life to save people like him, with such cruelty and disrespect. He approached Hayes slowly, his expensive suit wrinkled and his confidence completely shattered. Other passengers moved aside as he walked, their faces showing mixtures of disgust and pity. "General Hayes," he said, his voice breaking with emotion, I need to apologize. What I did was wrong. What I said was wrong. You saved my life today, and I treated you like I'm so sorry." Hayes looked at him for a long moment. Her eyes held no anger, no desire for revenge, just a quiet sadness for what humanity sometimes did to itself. "Apology noted, Mr. Lee," she said with the same dignity she had shown throughout the entire ordeal. "Use this as a lesson. Use it to become better than you were." As the rescued passengers began disembarking at the next station, June realized that his prejudice hadn't just cost him his business or his reputation. It had revealed something ugly about himself that he would have to live with for the rest of his life. He had humiliated a hero, and that moment had been witnessed by the entire galaxy. Hayes walked past him toward the exit, still helping elderly passengers with their bags and making sure everyone got off safely, even in victory. Even after saving everyone aboard, she remained focused on serving others. The woman he had tried to diminish had shown the entire galaxy what true greatness looked like. The D.